well, it kind of says it for itself, right? It's like, come here, set up, employ us, we'll bring skilled individuals, come for the long term on that, so you're not, and in a sustainable financial model such that it's not a case of if funding gets pulled by whomever is sponsoring something, it's still going. And I think that was the implication. And then I love this quote by the Mother Superior of 12 sponsored schools, 3,500 kids. And so we were in the office of a principal of one of these schools in northern Zambia, a very impoverished area. And the principal, she said, oh, the system costs money, it's not just for free. And the Mother Superior looked at her and said, this system has tremendous value, we must pay for it. And also the parents and the PTA recognized the fact that it would help them and their children to have a better life. It's help, to help them out of the current state there. And one of the interesting things about schools and e-learning systems is the fact that if it's in the school, yes, there's bars on the windows and there's steel doors there and everything, but it's also protected by the community because everyone knows the fact that that's going to help their kids. And so they actually have, it's the same thing with water wells when we get into more even harsher environments. It's protected naturally because folks realize the worth on there. And so due diligence and optics here, I've got the optics on why on the for-profit and even from on the ground what that looks like. But also on this side, Western countries and donors, of course, how can I help give hope through education? And it also leads into people that we need as volunteers, like retired teachers, translators, fundraisers, etc. And I think that's probably enough on that, but I'll jump down to financial sustainability. In country would be that on the for-profit side, there's subscription fees to the e-learning system. They're paid directly by the schools and by families for kids at home. And on the charitable side, fish farms, market gardening, honeybees, auto mechanics, all kinds of other localized financial initiatives that accompany, we wouldn't do those directly, but we work with World Vision and others to get those set up so that there's a well-being in the community as a whole. And then that says global financial sustainability. Of course, on this side, revenue, we have equity partners, so people that want to invest in this thing, debt, i.e. people that have loaned us money. We're trying to raise about $250,000 in debt right now to make all of this work and to be more effective. And on this side, of course, we have foundations, NGOs, CSR, or corporate social responsibility, and private and corporate donors, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a mouthful on there, but there's just all of this interplay, if that makes sense, on what we're trying to achieve here with our 8 people, but that's another story. So current impact, we're still small. We've got about 11 people total right now, but we have 4 schools in 1 community center in Zambia, totaling 1,100 students and 80 teachers. The school I talked about in Zimbabwe with 850 children. And we've just launched, as of the end of March, national online schools for Kenya, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So that would be going to the left side of the railway track, where children with internet and digital devices at home can subscribe onto the system. Then that obviously helps on the other side of the railway track as well. And we've developed an open framework and about 25,000 curated resources. So we can now curate a new country's learning platform according to their curriculum, which would be in English, plus their mother tongue numeracy and literacy books for about $125,000 in about 6 months. and I've talked about a bunch of the rest of the things, but we do have a partnership with the Laurier Faculty of Education, World Vision, and a few others. As we look ahead here, 2019, 2020, so we're expanding our reach. I talked a little bit about that, and moving into Canada and the US, hopefully, over the course of this year and next. We're partnering with an NGO in Kenya with a 3-year goal of reaching 120,000 children and young adults. So this is a biggie in the fact that this is actually Compassion Canada. So they're already established. They already have these 120,000 children sponsored, well, from around the world, but in Kenya. The sponsorships come from around the world. But they already have the relationships with 425 churches, and they run an after-school program in each of those churches, and that totals 120,000 kids, and they would like to have our system. We're just running a first pilot there over the next 6 months. So that's very exciting for us. We have a large-scale initiative in Zambia. Again, this is another dirt poor area of Zambia for 10,000 students and 340 teachers across 12 schools. So we're hoping to get underway there by the end of the year, and that would make a substantial difference in that entire region of about 195,000 people. This one just came to the forefront in the last month in the fact that our system, even though it's tailored to K-12, can also have other content put in it. So we have opportunity for bringing a digital library to Zambian nurses who are on the forefront of HIV/AIDS, and it's over 2,000 of them, nurses in one university there, which would really help to change the ratio in Zambia, because there's less than 50% of the nurses even trained in the country compared to what the UN recommended amount is. And then Liberia and Ethiopia are on the radar because of new partnerships that we have. One is called Education for Change, which is a Waterloo-based charity that has initiatives in Ethiopia. So we're looking forward to doing that as well. Want to leave some time for Q&A, but let me just show you 2 videos, if you wouldn't mind. One is the Zimbabwe school that started just in May of last year, like I said. It took us 6 months before that to build the Zimbabwe Ministry of Education system. But when we arrived in the last week of April last year, again, 1/3 of the teachers had never touched a computer before. We did a week of teacher training, and at the end of that week, the teachers, after understanding how to use the system, they've been trained on tablets for connecting to the media server, all that kind of neat thing. They had a ceremony at the end of it, and let me just bring that up if I can find it here. The ceremony was at the end of the week to receive their personal tablet, and this is the kind of excitement you get. There's just a Samsung tablet inside the green box there. World Vision person in the back of your hands. The person on the left is the principal of the school. Ministry of Ed guy sitting down with the dark jacket. So that's the kind of joy that comes when you've been resourced in life and can actually have the resources to do your job, right? And by the way, there were 22 such dances down the aisle that day, and they all took about that long. But isn't that good fun on there? And then the last one here. So I had mentioned the Minister of Education, the big tent, and all of that kind of thing. So at the end of the ceremony that day, by the way, it was 36 degrees Celsius in the shade that day, and I had a tie and all that together, very formal. But let me here you're going to hear a thank you, Canada. And there you kind of have it. So, and that's kind of the icing on the cake at that point, where we've been able to have some impact. So thank you all very much.
So your platform is content and infrastructure? Like, how do you compare to D2L?
Yeah,
Is that a fair question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm not, I know that D2L has secondary systems and of course university systems as well. We, in part of solving those major problem statements there, we recognize that not only did you need specialized equipment for the heat and all of those things, but another reason why things failed horribly was that there was no support. And so, and we all know computers need support in order to continue to work, and systems need to be updated all the time. And so it is a total solution where required, which it was because they had no computers, nothing in that school. So we went in with all the infrastructure, all the computers, all the teacher training, and all the resources as well. And then in this case, so our system will work completely offline if it needs to, so we don't, because we want. One of the things we also said is that our system has to work every day. It just has to work every day, because if the teachers are going to spend their time, their evening, getting something ready, then it has to work the next day when they come in. And so the whole area of quality assurance and having systems that run every day was really key to us. And so we put the whole system in there. We happen to have a slow internet connection in there, so we can drop additional resources in. We can monitor the systems from here. We can pull metrics out, but the schools in northern Zambia just run every day our little media server. You usually would find it maybe on the side of a blast furnace at Stelco, shaking all day. So we went for industrial strength stuff, so they just run. And it doesn't matter if they click off or blink or whatever, they just come back up and they're going again. Yeah, go ahead.
I really like the model that you've got for sustainability. I think that's really awesome to start with. I was wondering about who you're partnering with at Laurier. We worked with Steve Sider and his group around education, and that's like a train-the-trainer program for principals in Haiti. So I was wondering who you're working with at Laurier.
Yeah, we first talked with Steve, and we just knew that would never work. I'm just kidding. It's Steve we work with. Steve's a great guy. He is actually on our advisory board, whether he wants to be or not. And so it's with him and ELI and E4Change that we are going into Ethiopia. So E4Change, Education for Change, is a group of principals, or 2 or 3. And so no, I'd love to have a chat with you about that. So it is with Steve.
And it's all in English, the software right now, or?
Well, it'll take any language, but most of what we've curated at this point. So we have over 70 languages right now, and actually hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of mother tongue language books for literacy and numeracy in the system. So there's 7 main languages. Well, English is the national language for each of those 3 countries, including Zambia, but there's 7 main mother tongue languages in Zambia, and we would have readers for all of those, extensive readers for all of those. Same thing in Kiswahili for Kenya, and Zimbabwe I'm not so good at, but we have most of their languages sorted. Yeah.
Simon?
I think you said that, I think it's in Zambia, you have some private subscribers.
Yes.
I'm just wondering about the pricing structure. Does that kind of force itself into the sort of upper middle class, or?
Yes and no. I mean, we so right now when we ask for sponsorship, it's about $10 Canadian a month to sponsor a child and the whole setup in their school, so the teacher's resource and everything. That's just a ballpark number. But at the private schools, and for those of you just with respect to private schools, you think about private schools in Ontario, you already, the dollar signs are starting to go. But in sub-Saharan Africa, the idea of a private school is that you just don't want your child going to the public school, and there's a really inexpensive private school over there, and there's more private schools than there are public schools, and you can get them all the way from 50 cents a month to $5,000 US and more per term, and even higher, right? So we come in Kenya at only about 5% of tuition at a high-end Kenya school, and it would be probably 8 to 10% commission. It's not commission, like a ratio of what our system costs. In Zambia, it's still all purchasable. It's like $8 US per term, which is 4 months of the year. Right? So it's relative to what they're paying to go to school. It's still less than 10% of what they would be paying to go to school anyway. And also, it includes about $80 US worth of books in the system. So I haven't mentioned this. We have contracts with publishers in each of those countries, and so we have the digital version of the ministry-approved books that are in the system, so they don't have to buy the hard copy. And so our system is actually less than half the price of what they would pay if they bought the books per year, kind of thing. So we're trying to keep it down, and yet we have to stay in business and make sure that we're around. So I see the hook. Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you.
Thanks very much. In your honor for our club, the story I say actually of someone in a
wonderful.
third world country.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's Roseanne, 65, female, from India.
Wonderful.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
That's
very
great
much.
that you do that.
Thank you.
And I know we've run right to the wire, so if somebody's looking here to get going, and if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, meeting's adjourned. Phil, can I have you come up?